A neonatal intensive care unit is an ecosystem built on absolute fragility. Premature infants rely on highly calibrated machines for every breath, and their parents place complete trust in the medical staff keeping them alive. In 2018, police arrested Lucy Letby. Detectives working the case described her as the human form of beige, a quiet, unremarkable nurse. Yet the conviction that followed labeled her the most prolific child serial killer in modern British history. After a trial lasting 10 months, she was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 more. The court handed down 15 whole life orders, ensuring she will die in prison. This outcome presents a sharp dichotomy. Either an ordinary nurse successfully masked a lethal psychology for years, or the British justice system has authorized a prison sentence based on a mistake of unprecedented scale. The crisis centered on the Countess of Chester Hospital. Between June 2015 and June 2016, the neonatal unit saw a sudden, unexplained spike in infant deaths and collapses that hospital reviews could not initially account for. Letby was the first in her family to attend university, graduating with a degree in nursing in 2011. Her life appeared singularly dedicated to her career. She even took part in fundraising campaigns for the very unit where the deaths occurred. However, the public inquiry into the case revealed a professional failure during her training. An assessor initially failed Letby in her final student placement, formally documenting her as cold and recording a specific lack of clinical empathy with patients and their families. Investigators focused on this documented detachment. To the police, it suggested that beneath her beige exterior sat an individual capable of viewing the life and death of a vulnerable patient with clinical indifference. In a neonatal ward, nurses move constantly between incubators to adjust levels and monitor vitals. The prosecution argued this environment allowed Letby to access multiple infants, using her status as a trusted professional to hide her actions in plain sight. Medical experts for the prosecution testified that the babies were harmed through methods designed to leave minimal trace, injecting air into bloodstreams, poisoning feeding tubes with insulin, and intentional oral feeding. This demonstrates anchoring bias, forcing a pattern onto random events to find a single cause. The investigation found its anchor in the staffing rota. Mapping Letby's shifts against every collapse revealed a perfect correlation. She was present for every incident charged. No one saw Letby harm a child. There was no CCTV and no direct forensic evidence. Instead, the case relied on the power of this statistical correlation to convince the jury her presence was not a coincidence, but proof of guilt. As the medical reviews shifted into a criminal inquiry, the focus turned toward why a nurse would commit such acts. Establishing a motive became the central challenge for the police. Prosecutors proposed that Letby was a covert sadist who played God with her patients. They alleged she killed for a thrill and sought to use the resulting crises to gain the attention of a married doctor at the hospital. To support this profile, the court heard how Letby hoarded over 200 confidential hospital handover notes in her home. She was also caught searching Facebook for the babies she was accused of attacking, sometimes within hours of their deaths. The prosecution's most striking evidence was a collection of personal Post-it notes found in her home. On one, she had scribbled the words, "I am evil, I did this," and "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough." By weaving together the staffing charts, the Facebook searches, and these scribbled notes, the prosecution presented the jury with a portrait of a nurse whose quiet exterior masked a lethal, attention-seeking pathology. Despite the verdicts, the case is entering a new phase of scrutiny. A dossier of 31 expert reports from international specialists has now been submitted to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, challenging the reliability of the trial's medical evidence. The defense is also recontextualizing the Post-it notes. They point to evidence that Letby wrote them while under extreme stress, following the advice of occupational health counselors to journal her feelings as a coping mechanism after being removed from her duties. If we look at the wider data from the hospital, the perfect correlation begins to shift. This expanded grid shows several other neonatal deaths occurred on the ward when Letby was not on shift, deaths omitted from the trial's evidence. Independent medical experts now suggest the collapses could be attributed to systemic failures, like chronic understaffing, poor hygiene protocols, and the risks of premature birth. Blaming a single person provides an answer for an inexplicable tragedy, but it risks ignoring the reality of institutional failure and the possibility that statistical patterns can be manipulated to fit a specific suspicion. The Thirlwall inquiry and the ongoing review of her convictions represent the final attempt to determine the objective truth. They will decide if the evidence against Letby remains safe under this new scientific pressure. The case leaves us with two distinct realities. In one, the jury correctly identified a covert sadist. In the other, the court relied on scientific and statistical evidence that independent experts now describe as fundamentally flawed. Ultimately, the Letby case highlights a limit of the justice system, the difficulty of distinguishing between a genuine pattern of crime and the human psychological need to find escape